Good afternoon. Welcome. On behalf of the family and friends, we just want to welcome everyone to a celebration of the life of Jackson Jordan Pappas. Before we get started, I just wanted to, we are live streaming today's service so that people who are not able to be here are able to join with us online. And so if you or if people that you know who are not able to be here would like to view the service or download it, you can go to Cornerstone Church Facebook page and you will find the recording there after the service. For that reason, as we invite some of you to come forward and share, I am going to ask that you speak into the microphone so that the people that are watching online can hear what is being said. So let's open with a moment of prayer. Father God, we are here to do the impossible today, Father. To say goodbye, and at the same time to celebrate. We celebrate and we thank you for Jackson, for the life that he lived, although it was short. So we just ask that you would join us in this place today, that you would bring your peace and your comfort to his family and to his friends, and that you would give us hope and assurance that he is in a much better place. Amen. And we are going to start today's service with a reading, and I'm going to ask Riley to come forward.
I want to start off by saying thank you for all the love and support you have all shown to our family and how much love you all had for Jackson. It is a truly beautiful thing seeing how many lives Jackson had an impact on. He is and will continue to be a wild and free soul. There was nothing you could do to stop Jackson when he had his mind set on something. He was always wanting to learn something new, whether it was learning how to play poker with my little brother and betting with Twizzlers, or learning how to start a fire from pine sap with our grandfather. Jackson and I were close when we were little, and as we got older, we eventually started to drift apart. We would text here and there and crack little jokes and go on about our day. When we were little, we would all get together for Christmas, and we would take turns opening the presents and sitting there waiting for our Grandma Tina to take pictures of us opening every single one of them. Meanwhile, our grandfather couldn't even figure out how to turn the phone on. After the presents were all finished, we would take what felt like forever getting dressed in our puffy winter clothing to play outside for a total of 3 minutes. I remember the first time I got in a side-by-side with Jackson at my grandparents' house, and I remember thinking to myself, I am so glad that there's a bar to hang on. We went driving around the field at what felt like light speed, but in reality we were doing 10 miles an hour doing the same circle over and over and over again. One thing I could say was that he loved to make people laugh. This quality is something that he carried all throughout his life. I remember going over to New Hampshire with him, Greg, my little brother, and I. Jack got a kick out of repeatedly hitting me with a birdie from a badminton set. It never got old to him no matter how many times he did it. At the time it felt like my little cousin was picking fun of me, but now I would do anything to go back and have him try to sling the birdie at me just to hear him laugh or do circles in a side-by-side again. He was taken too soon, but now he is at rest and at peace. Thank you all again for coming today and showing your love for Jackson. I'm going to wrap this up by reading a poem in remembrance of Jackson. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes we always enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effort, without the ghost of a shadow in it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. there is absolute unbroken continuity. What is death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am waiting for you for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well. Nothing is past, nothing is lost. One brief moment and all will be as it was before, how we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again. Thank you.
And the family has asked that we play Dancing in the Sky at this time.
Tell me, what does it look like in heaven? Is it peaceful? Is it free like they say? Does the sun shine bright forever? Have your fears and your pain gone away? 'Cause here on earth it feels like everything good is missing since you left. And here on earth everything's different. There's an emptiness. Oh, I hope you're dancing in the sky, and I hope you're singing in the angels' choir, and I hope the angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. So tell me, what do you do in heaven? Are your days filled with love and light? Is there music? Is there art and invention? Tell me, are you happy? Are you more alive? 'Cause here on earth it feels like everything good is missing since you left. And here on earth everything's different. There's an emptiness. Oh, I hope you're dancing in the sky, and I hope you're singing in the angels' choir, and I hope the angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. Since you arrived. I hope you're dancing in the sky, and I hope you're singing in the angels' choir, and I hope the angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. Since you arrived. Does it look like in heaven? Is it peaceful? Is it free like they say?
What a beautiful question. And the question that we're all left asking this afternoon. You know, this morning I met with Mary this morning, and she said, I don't think I'm going to be okay. And I think a lot of us in this room today are feeling the same way. And so before we dive into the rest of our celebration of Jackson, I just want to let you know that it's okay to not be okay today. That it's okay to laugh, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to feel your feelings. But I hope that by the time that we take our leave of this place this afternoon, that you will find some comfort and some hope for the future. Today we have 2 tasks before us. One is extremely difficult, and the other extremely easy. The difficult task is to say goodbye. The second, which is easier, and where we get our comfort from, is celebrating the life that he lived. We are here today to mourn. And tears have already been shed, and more will be shed in the days and months and years to come as his family and friends learn to navigate a life that no longer includes Jackson. But we are also here today to celebrate and rejoice. We celebrate because Jackson was, because he lived. Everyone in this room today is here because at one point in time, Jackson touched our lives. Maybe it was for a short period of time, or maybe it was for a really long time. And it doesn't matter. Because no matter whether you knew him his entire life or but for a few months, he deposited something into your life. No matter whether the words and memories that are shared here today move you to tears or make you laugh, it's okay. We are actually here today to share our loss through our tears and even our fondest memories, those that make us laugh and smile. Heavenly Father, you gave us life, and then you receive us again in death. And we thank you for always being there for us, for the grace you give, for the strength that you give in our weaknesses. And in our sorrow, we thank you for the comfort. And we ask that you would help us now to put our faith and our trust in you, that we might experience your grace, which leads to eternal hope. Right now, it's difficult for us to see beyond our grief, to reconcile the great loss that we feel, yet we can find peace and comfort in the words and deeds of Jesus, because he was our comforter. You know, in the Bible, there's a story. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it or not familiar with it, but Jesus had a friend, and his name was Lazarus. And in the Bible, there's a story, and his friend died. Oftentimes, when it talks about Jesus' reaction to the loss of his friends, it's pointed out that it's the shortest verse in the entire Bible, because all it says is Jesus wept. And if the Son of God could weep over the passing of of a mortal man, then surely so can we. And another example, Jesus restored the life of a young girl, the daughter of the ruler of the synagogue. The Apostle Mark tells us he prefaced these actions with the statement, "The child is not dead, but asleep." Jackson sleeps today. He has now entered into eternal rest, but his death was not in vain. His death does not negate the purpose that God had for him during his far too short time with us here on earth. And we find comfort in words like these: "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." And "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed." God knew that we would all face times in our lives when we needed comfort. Not a comfort that is fleeting and temporary, but a comfort that will last for all of eternity. In just a few minutes, we're going to hear some stories about the deposits that Jackson left in the hearts and lives of those he loved. His death is a reminder that life is far too short and precious and not to be wasted. Those who knew and loved Jackson might tell you that he faced some complex life circumstances in his time, but he had goals and dreams, just like all of us. Some of them he realized, and others he didn't realize this side of eternity. But I do believe that if he were here today, the one thing he would tell us all is to not waste the precious gift of life. Learn to forgive and not hold grudges. Find a way to heal from what has hurt you. Take time to love, and most importantly, to laugh. Don't waste your time on stuff that doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, what really matters is what you see in this room today. People. People who Jackson loved and who loved him. These human bodies that we walk around with on this earth are just a shell of who we are. God created us with a specific purpose and plan. Some of us, we figure that out very early in life. And for others, it takes a while. As a matter of fact, the Bible tells us that as long as we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. This place, this world that we live in is not our permanent home. And we can take comfort today knowing that Jackson has found his permanent home. David tells us in Psalm 19 that the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. As I was meeting with Mary, she shared many stories with me. And one of them was that Jackson, he was kind of a climber from an early age. Almost as though he knew that this world was not his final destination. As though he were trying to get higher so he could see further and experience more. To fly high. He sought peace and comfort from nature itself, from a sunset, a babbling brook, the sunlight streaming through a forest. You see, God created the world that we live in with us in mind, and he knew that there would be times when we needed the comfort and peace to be found in nature. There's a poem that they say was written by a woman named Mary Elizabeth Fry. And she wrote it in a letter to a friend after the friend had lost her mom. And this is what it says: "Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I did not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on the snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die." Jackson may not walk among us today, but we can take comfort and have hope from the idea that if we will look for him, we will find him all around us. In the brilliant bloom of spring's flowers and in the gentle falling snow, in the bright stars at night, and in the gentle sounds of waves lapping on the beach. Hang on to your memories of his laughter, of his pursuit of all the world had to offer him, and all that he deposited in your life in his short time here with us. You know, we can look at death feels so final, and we can look at it as the end or as the beginning. A friend of mine lost her son many years ago, and she told me repeatedly that at first she didn't notice because there was so much to do and so many people to see and to talk to. But as the days wore on, she began to sense her loss more and more. It felt as though every day her son was a little further away. Almost as though she was standing at the edge of a bridge and was helplessly watching him walk across the bridge away from her. Her great fear in that image was the idea that one day she would wake up and she would forget his smile, what his laughter sounded like. She even missed the messes that he left for her to clean up. And then one night she had a dream. And in her dream, instead of her son walking across that bridge away from her, she found herself walking on that bridge. And she walked and she walked and she walked, and in her dream, at times it felt like she wasn't going anywhere. And then she began to see the other side of the bridge. And standing at the other side of the bridge was her son, waiting patiently for her there so that they could walk into glory together. She found peace in that image. I hope you will too. The God of peace is here today. The God of comfort is here today. And he's just waiting to welcome you into his peace and comfort. Father God, you are the Lord of both life and death. And we are gathered here today to face the reality of death. In this room today, we feel the sting. Our loss is heavy. Just like when Jesus stood at the grave of his friend and wept. And as we sit with our loss this afternoon, we thank you that you gave us Jackson, created in your image. He was a gift to each one of us in many different ways, given to us because of your great love for us. Each one of us in this room can say that our lives are better for having known him, for having loved and been loved. And although death has separated us for a time, we do know that if we invite you into our hearts and into our lives, we too will know an eternity free of pain and sorrow. Give us courage as we face the days ahead. Bring comfort to his family and to his friends. And remind all of us to pause and to listen for the sound of the wind, to appreciate the warmth of the sun on our skin, and know that Jackson is never far. I'm going to ask Mary to come forward.
For those who don't know me, my name's Mary Pappas, and I'm Jackson's grandmother. I adopted Jackson in 2012 when he was just a little tight. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for being here. Your show of kindness and support has been overwhelming. And I'm not sure how we would have gotten through the past week without all of you. For the meals you delivered, they helped to organize everything, and the outpouring of love you've shown. It's been the worst week of our lives, but you've helped us to get through it. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Today we're here to celebrate Jackson's life. And like Pastor Laurie said, he touched a lot of people. And it wouldn't be fair for me just to sit here and tell you everything about his life. So we're going to have different people come up and share how Jackson touched their life. But I'm going to start when he was just little. As an infant, Jackson had a condition called plagiocephaly and torticollis, which his mom, Susan, determined to get the proper care he needed, worked with the state, writing a letter to the governor to get him approved for out-of-state care in Connecticut, where they fitted him with a helmet, as you'll see in some of the pictures on the memory board, which required trips every 10 days to Connecticut to have that helmet adjusted until the desired results were reached. She did this faithfully for almost a year and a half. He also required surgery on his neck to fix the torticollis, which was a short tendon in the neck that had kind of contributed toward the problem. I was a young mother of 2 small boys, and out of love and concern for her children, knowing that she was struggling to care for them in the proper way, she made the hard decision to get help through the foster care program. She never stopped loving her boys, and she's always strived to maintain a relationship with them. And I'm going to ask Joe Henry to come up. And Joe Henry was Jackson's foster dad, and David. And he's going to share a little bit about Jack's life at that time.
Shalom, everyone. In Judaism, we always say, when we say, like if I was to say Jackson, we always say the response is, may his memory be a blessing. And I want you to always remember that. And in Christianity, I'm of the kind that believes Jesus' promise, whoever believe in me shall never die, which to me means that as long as you love goodness, kindness, compassion, and mercy, you will be blessed. So, this is not my first eulogy. And someone asked me once what would be an excellent metaphor for heaven, which I believe Jackson is at right now. And it was a lady that I really, really liked. And I thought, yeah, it's a good metaphor for heaven. Heaven, to me, is a big champagne bottle. God is the bottle. All the people that we love and accumulate through our lives and through our lineage are the bubbles. Jesus is the one that opens that champagne bottle when we die, and all of that fizz comes out, and that is all the ones that we love. I hope that when it is my time to be uncorked, that one of those bubbles is Jackson. Now to the Jackson story. So like most foster parents in Vermont, you get a phone call. Can you go pick up this little boy in Islamont? And of course, you don't know what you're going to get. So I got in my car and I went over, and out of the house comes this little tyke about that big. Of course, you think it's going to be crying, you know, it's very traumatic. Bravest person you ever saw in your life. Where do I put my stuff? Open the door, put him in the car seat. Said, we don't live very far. We live on the same island. So we get to my house. Where do I put my stuff? Where's my room? The bravest kid I've ever seen in my life was not afraid of anything, even at that young age. Wanted to know what the rules are. He had his list on what he didn't eat. I don't eat this. I don't eat that. He always called me avô because I knew he had a dad, and I really didn't want to. So avô in Portuguese means grandfather. So both Greg and Jackson always called me avô. And then David. David's my partner. And so we established all our little routines. We'd have dinner, and then we'd do dishes, and then we'd do Connect Four. And then Portuguese, because I like to teach him Portuguese. And Jackson learned quite well. He was very good. He was one of the smartest kids I ever known, both him and Greg. Of course, Greg always tried to, so I taught him Portuguese was flashcards, and they had to match them up. Well, of course, Greg always wanted to beat Jack, and Jack always wanted to beat Greg. So I got to do a little bit of Portuguese with Jackson because my family, I'm a California Portuguese, but I do have Massachusetts, New Bedford Portuguese family. And I took Jackson to the Whaling Museum, which is one of the pictures with the harpoons in the back. We went to the New Bedford Zoo. He loved the elephant. And then we went to Newport, to the Portuguese synagogue in Newport. And he went to the service with me. So one of the stories about Jackson and Portuguese was, so I went to my cousin's house, and Jackson was small, and then my cousin Teresa, but she's from another island in the Azores, and my family's from another island. And she asked, Jackson, so you speak Portuguese? And Jackson said, yeah. Shook his head. And so what do you know how to say? And which, like any kid, you know, is not just going to blurt out Portuguese. So I told Teresa, you have to ask him, a specific thing, like a dog, you know what I mean, or a house, or, so I believe she picked dog. So she goes, well, how do you say dog? And Jackson said, calm, and said a couple of more words. And then Teresa turned to me and said, well, you did a good job. He definitely has your accent. So Jackson was just a joy. And so on the 12th of May, the day that Jackson passed, I have Dutch belted cows, and I was about to call the vet because she was like so overdue to have her calf. And then, so David had to go to Mason's, which is at 8 o'clock. So I kind of speeded up a little, and we got the calf out. But then, as the calf was coming out, I realized that it wasn't black and white. It was red and white, which is very, very rare for Dutch belted. So I didn't know about Jackson's passing yet. So the next day, David's nephew was in town, so I made lunch. And then I looked out the window and saw a red cardinal. And I didn't make anything of it, other than it was beautiful. And then when I got home, I saw the tragic news on Facebook. Of course, I couldn't stay home. I told David, I have to go to Georgia. So I get to Georgia, and, first person I saw was Greg, and hugged him, love him to death. And then we sat down with Mary, and they too saw a red cardinal, all that on the porch. Now you may think, well, purely coincidence. Maybe it is. But maybe it was a last, I love you. Maybe it was a last, I love you. So I'm going to share something that was on my refrigerator just hours ago. Jackson's self-portrait of his avul. Now, you're going to see some similarities. We did have the same kind of eyes, those very dramatic kind of eyes that Jackson had and Greg has. So I've kept it on the refrigerator all of these years. Now, I did take him to Burlington to synagogue one time, which was very boring for a kid, I'm sure. But, I'm like, foster care as well, Sometimes you got to take them along to certain things they don't want to go to, just like they take you to certain things you don't want to go to. And we sat in a circle. It was our Wednesday group, and Jackson sat next to me. And there was an elderly gentleman across, and Jackson got bored and decided to cross his eyes and just made that elderly gentleman melt in his hands. He forever asks me about him all the time. That's how he was able to impact people. Now, I'm going to say a joke, Greg. Has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with Jackson. But I think it's kind of has a little bit of that personality that these boys had. So, there was a woman who had twins. Loved the twins. Twins were very mischievous. If a mailbox got kind of little smashed, well, or if this kind of got disappeared, kind of was maybe the twins. Maybe this or that. So she got kind of fed up about it. And she said, well, I'm going to take him to church and let the pastor at least talk to one of them. So she took one of the twins to the pastor, and the pastor says, son, do you know where God is? And he just got shocked, turned around, ran all the way home, got into his closet, closed the door, and then the twin came and said, what's the matter? What did he ask you? They think God's missing, and we took him. I got a smile out of Greg. They were kind of like that. So I don't think everybody got the memo on the flannel shirts, but I got the memo. So if you would raise up your hand if you got the flannel shirts on, okay? Everybody with the flannel shirts got the thing? Okay. We're going to touch Jackson and say, we love you. Thank you for being part of our lives. We will always remember you, and may your memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Next, we're going to ask Lori.
As I'm Lori Reynolds, Tommy, Larry, and Tucker's mom. As my husband nicknamed him, Action Jackson. The night you headed home after seeing your last sunset has changed all of our lives. As I always called Jackson, he was my Jacko. He was always on the move. He was always pedaling down the road. Jack and Tucker. If I couldn't find Tucker, he was at Jack's house. And if Mary couldn't find Jack, he was at our house. I have 3 boys, but I have felt as if I have always had more. Bicycles became scooters and skateboards. And then there were dirt bikes and 4-wheelers, which were traded for cars and motorcycles. As my boys grew up, my days became empty. And my nights, they became filled with prayers. So many times I hugged Jacko with an I love you and be safe warning, along with the others as they went out the door. So many times the prayers went up along with the dirt and the dust that flew out behind all those boys' tires, leaving my driveway as I watched till they turned the corner out of sight. My sweet, precious boys. Now, I pray to all of you here in our community and Jack's friends and my 3 boys. with all my heart and all of my soul. When you turn that key, think about this day. Think about Jackson. Jackson, you were a kind, quiet, gentle soul. You loved being outdoors, snowboarding. You were always fishing, climbing trees and mountains, and playing video games with your brother Greg. I am so proud of you, Jackson, for touching so many people's lives that are here today with your love, laughter, and smile. I will forever see you zooming across every beautiful sunset with those blue eyes shining and that huge grin that you and Tucker always shared across your face. I love you. Tom.
Hello. So I'm Tom Reynolds. I'm Tucker and Larry's dad. I don't know where to even start. I'm beyond impressed. I didn't know about Joe Henry and David. I think that's totally amazing. And all the other things that happened to Jackson when he was a little fella, I didn't really know much about. I met Jackson when he was about, 8, 9 years old, something in that range. But I guess for me, the thing is Jackson made me nervous because he didn't care what the weather was. First time I met him, he come over in a rainstorm, winter storm, soaking wet. That's all right. Doesn't matter. And he just had a knack about him that the weather didn't make any difference. And he just wanted to hang out with his buddies and do his thing. And there was no aggression. I didn't see any of that with Jackson. I didn't see any need to say, you're my friend, or you're my friend, or you're my friend. Everybody was friends with Jackson for the most part. Excuse me, for the most part. Even though Jackson and my son Tucker was the same exact age and practically inseparable from that young age, his other friend, who happens to be my other boy, Larry, is about 1.5 years older, just as tight. And there was no need for them to say, well, I'm going to go see my buddy, because it was the same exact buddy. And to me, that's really neat. It's neat the fact that you got a young fella who is friends with most kids, whether they're a little older, a little younger, because some of the other kids are 2-3 years younger than Jackson, and just as much of their buddy. And to me, that's really neat. And I could tell you a lot of stories of going out to the sand pit, doing this and that, or going skiing, going snowboarding, that I brought them all over the place, fishing or swimming or swinging off the high bridge. They set up a rope on the high bridge, which is, it's the new bridge, not the old bridge, if any of you are local, but there used to be a big green bridge that everybody would swing and jump off from, and then that got removed in 1984, to give you a perspective of time. And then it got replaced with a concrete bridge. And most people would think there's nowhere to attach a cable to the underside of a concrete bridge. Not this group of kids. They attached a cable and swang for all it was worth. And there's endless different things that my boys did with Jackson that are totally cool and basically completely innocent for the most part. And like I said, I could go on and on and on, but what I'm most impressed by is the fact that I just learned a bunch of stuff about Jackson when he was really little, and I had no knowledge of those things. I had none whatsoever, because when he came into my world, he was part of it. Just like that, immediately part of it. And I welcomed him into our house with no reservations, and I got complete and total respect from Jackson. And I didn't have to ask for it. I didn't have to earn it. I didn't have to do anything other than just simply here's a kid who is willing and able, and yeah, I'm very grateful for that. And I don't know what else to compliment, but yeah, that's about all. So thank you. Oh, and if any of you other folks want to say anything, or young people want to give a memory of Jackson or have the courage to talk, you're more than welcome to. And if not, tell me the story and I'll repeat it.
Is there anyone that wants to share?
My name is Stacy Sullivan. I was Jackson's 3rd and 4th grade teacher. I'm a teacher, I'm not allowed to have favorites, so I'm just gonna say this. Jackson always had a special place in my heart while he was there, and ever since he has left my class. He was the right mix of funny and mischievous and hardworking. Those eyes and that smile, you know, just wraps you right around. And so I have always remembered Jackson since the moment he left my class, and I have never stopped talking about Jackson to my subsequent classes. My stories always start with, I had a student one year who, ... Whether I'm talking about how I used to tease him and sing a silly song so he'd remember how to spell the word they. Or just 2 weeks ago, when my class started a special project that began the year Jackson was in my class. It's called Cardboard Carnival. And Jackson built a life-size whack-a-mole game that he crawled inside of to operate on a hot day in June. And I remember checking inside that big box. Are you okay? Are you ready to pass out? You might want to take a break and get some water. And he's just there operating that game with that smile on his face and thought it was the cat's meow. I share those stories, not usually his name, but he's just a student one year who, ... And I always will continue to share those stories. I hope that when Jackson left my class in 4th grade, he knew that I was so fond of him and that he remembered there is no A in the word they.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So this is your last chance. Anyone else? Because I'm the closer, so. So, in everybody's life, to include Jackson's, is what I call their rock. And I believe, because I was there through a lot of it, that Mary was Jackson's rock. She was there at every meeting, picking him up, doing the thing of adopting them, which doesn't always happen, folks. Mary, you were and are Jackson's rock. So let's give her a hand of applause.
Is there anyone else that would like to share?
Well, there was one day there when we hiked up to the top of this mountain and we camped up there and watched the fireworks. And there was this big rotten tree on the side of the mountain. Me and Jack cut it down with an axe and dropped it right over the cliff. It was pretty cool. And one night we rode our bikes to the store over to Maple Fields at like 2 o'clock in the morning. We were just bored and hanging out. So we were like, oh, let's go to the store. And we were just back like 5 years ago. And we had our bikes leaning up against each other in the middle of the road. And all of a sudden we heard screeching. We're like, oh shit, what's that? Excuse my language. And we're like, what? And I ran out and grabbed our bikes. And just as fast as I got our bikes out of the road, a cop car came. Phew, and we were like, wow. But, yeah. That's all I want to say.
So I've known Jack for quite some time, probably 11 years, give or take, right around when Mary adopted him, and Greg. So if Greg wasn't home, it was Jack, and he'd be on the porch swinging his legs, or he'd be on top of the garage swinging his legs. I'd be like, what are you doing up there? And he would just hanging out. And there was just one thing I remember about him. It didn't matter what we were doing, if we were fishing, riding bikes, climbing that mountain with Larry. It didn't matter. Sometimes we just wouldn't have it go our way. So fishing, you'd break a line off. You'd break your favorite lure off. Ride your bikes, you'd pop both your tires because there's glass everywhere in Georgia. It didn't matter. And if you fell over and hurt yourself, Jackson would always be like, no good, bud. And it wasn't a bad thing. But when he said that, it didn't matter how bad the situation was. It just kind of made you feel a little better because he was trying to make light of it. And the other day I visited his cross on the side of the road, and I was a mess. Obviously, we all are. But I dropped my phone and shattered it because I was just clumsy. And I just picked it up. I didn't even care. And I just shook my head and laughed, and I looked at him, and I was like, no good. And I just, something that's going to stick with me forever is it didn't matter what it was. It would just bring light to the situation. He would just look at you and smile, and he'd be like, no good. And it just made it better for whatever reason. And yeah, we just did everything. And I just remember him always being there in the background, smiling. You know, when the Georgia farmhouse was open, getting ice cream, chicken tenders, we would clean that place right out. It was a good time, and I'm so grateful for him. You know, he was such a good kid. He didn't have issues with anybody. He was always there for you. It didn't matter who you were, and I appreciate it so much because he was amazing.
Anyone else?
I'm Larry and Tucker's grandmother. As a Nana, I love seeing the boys come down that driveway. Sometimes they'd ride to Essex Center all the way from Georgia. Big smile on their faces. They weren't afraid of anything. Many times they'd stop by the house, and Jacko would be standing there, and they'd come in the dining room, and Jacko would always be standing behind him. Such a humble guy. But those eyes, those blue eyes, and the smile, and the guys would be saying all kinds of stuff, and he'd just be standing there shaking his head. Or out swimming in the pool. He'd always be standing there, the last one off the board. He didn't care. He wasn't out to impress anybody. He was just Jacko. And they'd come down the driveway. I loved all those boys. And he'd stand there, sit on a four-wheeler at the time, big smile on his face. That's how I remember him, just such a big smile, not out to impress anybody, just quiet and being himself, and I loved him so much.
Anybody else? No? You want to do it from here?
Howdy. I didn't really come up with a plan of what to say. I didn't know what to say. I'm Greg. I'm Jack's brother. A lot of you know me. For you who don't, that's who I am. Jack was a compass, and he guided me through things that I never thought I could get through, and I know he did that for other people, and I think he will continue to do that. And I couldn't have asked for a better brother. I still couldn't. So, love you, buddy, wherever you are, and I know everyone has him in his hearts.
If you didn't get a chance to share here this afternoon, we are going to have a reception in Jackson's honor following this. And I really want to encourage you to stay and share your memories and your stories. I don't know if you've noticed it or felt it, but there's something really special that's happened in this room this afternoon. As people have gotten up and shared their memories and their pieces of Jackson's life that they experienced. And it's a knitting together that has taken place in this room. And you can feel the love in this room that each and every one of you hold in your hearts. You have become a community. And I want to encourage all of you to not let that end here today. Remain the community. Keep Jackson alive in your stories, in your thoughts. Life is precious. And we don't have answers always for the questions of why some lives go on for a really long time and some don't. But Jackson lived a life that was full in a short period of time. And we just want to thank all of you that shared today for sharing that with us this afternoon. Mary has asked us to play a song. At this point, it's called Scars in Heaven.
If I had only known the last time would be the last time, I would have put off all the things I had to do. I would have stayed a little longer, held on a little tighter. Now what I'd give for one more day with you. Cause there's a wound here in my heart where something's missing, and they tell me that it's gonna heal with time. But I know you're in a place where all your wounds have been erased, and knowing yours are healed is healing mine. The only scars in heaven that won't belong to me and you. There'll be no such thing as broken, and all the old will be made new. And the thought that makes me smile now, even as the tears fall down, that the only scars in heaven are on the hands that hold you now? I know the road you walked was anything but easy. You picked up your share of scars along the way. Oh, but now you're standing in the sun. You fought your fight and your race is run. The pain is all a million miles away. The only scars in heaven, it won't belong to me and you. There'll be no such thing as broken, and all the old will be made new. And the thought that makes me smile now, even as the tears fall down, is that the only scars in heaven, yeah, are on the hands that hold you now. Hallelujah, 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 for the hands that hold you now. There's not a day goes by that I don't see you. You live on in all the better parts of me. Until I'm standing with you in the sun, I'll fight this fight in this race I'll run, until I finally see what you can see. Oh, the only scars in heaven, they won't belong to me and you. There'll be no such thing as broken, and all the old will be made new. And the thought that makes me smile now, and even as the tears fall down, is that the only scars in heaven are on the hands that hold you now.
As I mentioned earlier, there is going to be a reception held downstairs immediately following the service. The family has asked me to thank all of you who responded to the GoFundMe and helped to take a lot off of their plates at this very difficult time, for the outpouring of love and support that they have received. This is the hardest part of our celebration today, because this is the time when we have to stand up and walk. And we walk into a world without Jackson, without his laughter, without his grin, without his fearlessness, his friendship, and his love. And sometimes it feels as though the world should have stopped when Jackson went home. That it's almost unfair that the world keeps spinning and life keeps going on. But Jackson would want you to keep going on. He would want you to laugh and tell jokes and pull pranks on each other and love well. And in the days and weeks that follow, I hope all of us are going to take a few moments and ask ourselves where we're going to spend eternity. Hopefully with Jackson. If you don't know the answer to that, Mary has told me that she's more than happy to talk to any of you. So we are going to pray one last time, and then the family has chosen one last song that they want to play. And we are going to ask that everyone else please remain seated as that song plays. As we get to the end of the song, the family is going to exit first, and then the rest of us will follow. So, Father God, we thank you for the life of Jackson. We thank you for all that he deposited into our lives. We thank you that you gave him to us, and even though we are feeling such incredible pain right this moment, Father God, we thank you that he was, that he lived. Because to feel the pain that we feel today means that we loved. And we will continue to love. And we look forward to the day when we'll start walking across that bridge. And Jackson will be waiting on the other side with a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face. Let's play that song.
I don't know why God always takes the good ones first. And man, I've tried to be strong and carry on, but damn, this hurts. And I just wish that I could talk to you again somehow, some way. Even if it's for a moment, so I can hear you say, don't cry for me, I'm alright. Yeah, I'm better than you know. And this life can be short or right, so don't waste it on sorrow. And just hold on to those moments and the memories we shared. We're both headed for the same place anyway. I just beat you there. I know they say, just give it a little time, you'll be okay. That might be true. It don't really help me today. And we ain't supposed to question the man upstairs, but there's just so much I don't understand. It just don't seem fair. Don't cry for me, I'm alright. I'm better than you know. And this life can be short or right, so don't waste it on sorrow. beat you there. And as each day goes by, I get a little bit stronger. But that don't stop me from wishing you were here a little bit longer. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So I'm gonna smile when I think of you, like I know you'd want me to. And I know you're watching over me in everything I do. And all those things I never got to say, well, I'll send them with this prayer. Then look up, wipe my tears, and raise my beer. And I'll see you there.